Hello, Puggo here. I had two prints to work with. Each one consisted of 3 reels. The first one is shown here and was used primarily for the video. It had nice color but a lot of scratches. The second one had Swedish subtitles and was very red. It was used for the audio because it had the mono mix. This required syncing the audio from one print with the video from the other, and they were not frame for frame the same, so that was a bit tedious. Interestingly, all 3 reels of the main print were cropped about 5 or 10% off of the bottom, whereas none of the reels of the Swedish print were cropped. All prints were anamorphic, requiring a special lens to project. I used a standard work printer and did the anamorphic conversion in software afterwards. Here you can see some of the original frames that were captured, followed by the final versions reflecting corrections to color, contrast, sharpness, some repairs around the border, the curved border that was used to mask the letterbox, and resizing the video for widescreen viewing. There were dozens and dozens of tiny repairs that had to be made, but I'm just going to show you the 2 biggest ones. Reel 3 had 10 seconds of severe sprocket hole damage. I used sprocket hole repair tape to correct the holes so that the film would play, and you can see the result. Extremely jerky. I first tried fixing it with the Virtual Dub filter D-Shaker by Gunnar Thalin. And it's not bad, but a couple of the spots really didn't correct well. Ultimately, I just decided to grab the same segment from the Swedish print and use that. It actually was a bit non-trivial because a couple of the scenes had subtitles, and I had to figure out ways of either removing them or masking them out somehow. The most interesting and challenging repair was a 5-second segment of Greedo's subtitles that were chopped off. The Swedish print did not have this problem, but unfortunately the Swedish subtitles then stepped all over Greedo's subtitles anyway, so this was a really challenging fix. My first attempt was to grab the split-second moments when the subtitles were not covered by Swedish and use those to patch in. It looks rather good, except if you look closely, you can see that Greedo's vest moves out of sync with itself. For my third attempt, I extracted the bottom subtitles by themselves, moved Greedo up, and pasted them along the bottom. But ultimately, I chose to leave the print completely alone and paste the extracted missing portion of the subtitles in the letterbox area below. There were thousands of glitches that I left unfixed. Here's one that I'm sure people will complain about if I don't explain it. This fur ball on the left-hand side of the print. It certainly looks like a hair caught in my projector gate. It's actually in the print. So this is not only not my doing, unfortunately it's not repairable either. A number of people asked me to leave the lead-ins and lead-outs to the films intact. I decided to provide them as extras here. Here's the lead into Reel 1. Pay particular attention to this numbering scheme. It's significant later. And here's the lead out. Now here's the lead into Reel 2, and you'll notice it's completely different than the countdown for Reel 1. This, coupled with the red shift on Reel 2, leads me to believe that they were from different prints, but that doesn't explain why they both would be incorrectly cropped along the bottom. Here's the countdown for Reel 3, and you can see that it matches Reel 1. And here's the lead out. Here's some of the hardware that I used, and some of the software. I probably used some other software along the way. This is a partial list. This project was followed closely on originaltrilogy.com, and I'd like to thank everyone for their comments, particularly Mother, Octorox, and Space Ranger. And most of all, I'd like to thank Jackson for allowing me to borrow the prints. That's all. I hope you enjoy the show. Puggo here. Once again, I had two prints to work with, one provided by Jackson and one provided by R. Sorter. Both were superb. I could have used either one. Ultimately, I chose to use Jackson's. I thought it had a little bit more detail. Let's talk briefly about the work printer. I know it looks like a projector, but actually it just illuminates the film. The camera zooms in on each frame and snaps pictures of them and sends those to the computer. The timing of those captures is controlled by the work printer because it too is hooked up to the computer. So you end up with a frame-by-frame capture assembled into a video file. Setting the camera to get the colors right is really difficult. Take a look at these two captures of Reel 2. In the first capture, Dagobah seems too green and dark, whereas in the second capture, the colors seem more balanced. You can see some flesh tones. But later in the same reel, it's the first capture that looks better, and it's the second capture in which the colors look wrong. My original plan was to use different captures for different scenes, but ultimately I decided to go for a color consistency throughout the film by using one capture and one set of settings for each reel. I also decided that I wasn't the right person for this job. I always liked Adywan's color choices on his edits, and he very graciously agreed to do this step. Take a look at the terrific color adjustments that he made on these scenes. Along the way, he fixed a few things too. Here's a glitch he spotted on Jackson's print. This scene suddenly switches from dark to light. Take a look right there. Dark, and now light. R. Sorter's print didn't have this anomaly, and so Adywan inserted it and matched the colors. Here's another one. It's really hard to keep hairs out of the work printer, and in this otherwise good capture, a giant hair, whoa, comes right into the scene. Adywan took the same portion from another of my captures and matched the color so the insertion would be seamless. Here's an annoying glitch in my capture that took me about a month to fix. This little piece of lint in the upper right of the frame. See that right there? I had another capture of this reel that didn't have that spot, but I couldn't use it because it had even a worse fuzzball. To fix this, I masked the spot and then carefully aligned and underlaid the other capture. This was probably the hardest scene in which to make this correction. You can probably see the spot here, but hopefully not here. The work printer does not capture audio, so to do that I need to use an actual projector. The whole process is very, very tedious. Stretching and shrinking each segment and using my best judgment to match the audio with the video. In some cases there are visual cues you can use. For instance, here you can see one of Boba Fett's laser blasts, so I can visually line up the audio peak with the particular frame in which the laser blast occurs. The film was, of course, spread over 3 reels. Here are the lead-ins and lead-outs. The lead-in for reel 1. The lead-out for reel 1. The lead-in for reel 2. The lead-out for reel 2. The lead-in for reel 3. And finally, the lead-out for reel 3. If you're watching this, you should definitely check out www.originaltrilogy.com. So many people to thank there, especially Jackson and R. Sorter for the original films. Adywan, of course, for doing the color correction. Thor and Althor spent a lot of time developing Avasynth scripts. And thanks to Nunn for packaging up the Mallwalker audio for me. Alright, that's all. Enjoy the show. Puggo here. Return of the Pug, 5 years in the making. there were 3 reels. Reel number 1 has lengthy scenes in very dark settings, so I actually did multiple captures, 6 to be exact. For the dark scenes, I made a capture that let in a lot of light to snag the detail hidden in the dark corners. However, that capture was totally blown away with the bright scenes in the desert around the Sarlacc pit. I did another capture that let in a lot less light, that did a great job on the outdoor scene, but largely crushed the blacks in the dark scenes, particularly in the entire Rancor sequence. I think if you didn't already know what was going on, you probably wouldn't have a clue. Adding to this complexity are scenes that move between the dark and bright environments. So assembling Reel 1 meant jumping between captures with different color corrections, and it was just extraordinarily tedious, as you can see in my editor timeline here. I was excited when Harmy volunteered to do the color correction, and I happened to be in Prague, and we met, and I handed off the original captures to him. We were very careful, so I don't think anybody noticed what we were doing. I ended up using Harmy's corrections only in the outdoor scenes near the Sarlacc pit. And you can see he did a fantastic job on this. I was unable to come close to his corrections in this portion of the film. In the indoor scenes here and the rest of the movie, I did my own color correction. And it's not perfect, but I'm happy with how it turned out. There are a number of fabulous Starfields in this movie, and I wanted to make sure that they didn't get crushed in a dark capture. Here's a scene where I wanted to retain the Starfield and the detail in a very bright planet. So I used a circular mask, which enabled me to use different captures for the Starfield as for the planet, and then color corrected them separately. By the way, on this scene, you might notice a glitch in the lower left, particularly during the wipe. Right there, where it seems that the color palette changes. I didn't do that. That's in the film. One correction that took a lot of time was actually my fault, and that was one of my better captures had 2 nasty hairs in the film gate for an extended period of time. You can see them here on the right. When I needed to use that capture, I used another mask for the right-hand side. Hopefully you won't see any artifacts from that. The final tweak that I did was reducing this red glow on the left-hand side. And so to do that, I used another mask and blended in a copy on the left with the reds reduced. Worked pretty well. By the way, there's a splice that you cannot miss right at the beginning of the film, right there. It's in such a conspicuous spot, I thought about removing it, but I left it in. Here's what it looks like. Some people want to see the lead-ins and lead-outs. Here's the lead-in for Reel 1. The lead-out for Reel 1. The lead-in for Reel 2. The lead-out for Reel 2. The lead-in for Reel 3, and the lead-out for Reel 3. If you're watching this, you really should check out www.originaltrilogy.com. So many people to thank, especially Jackson for the print, Silverwook for lots of stuff, Harmy for the color correction, and lots of people for their great suggestions and help, some of whom I've listed here. Sorry if I've missed anyone. 5 years is a long time. Well, enjoy the film.